Everybody's on their feet at Kauffman Stadium. It's a dribbler. MacArthur's got it. Makes the play. Royals win. They take down the best team in the American League. 2-1 the final. And they win game one of this four-game series.
Good morning, Kansas City. This is New Day with SSJ on Sports Radio 810 WHB. It's Friday, June 28th, 2024. Steven St. John here. Jake Gutierrez is off on vacation, so the Drake Jason Justice filling in for him. We also have Yu the intern, who is here with us all summer long. Also joining us today in studio, we will have our good friend Stan Weber, who will be here in the next segment and will hang out with us for about an hour and a half like he does each and every Friday. We're also going to talk to Jeff Penner and get the weekend forecast for you. Former Royals catcher Mike McFarland will be with us. We will ask him about, of course, the big win last night for the Royals over the Guardians. But since Bo Jackson's going to be inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame on Saturday, Mac knows a little bit about playing with Bo Jackson, so we'll get Mac to tell us a couple of Bo Jackson stories. So looking forward to that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then at 9:05, we will talk more about the four-game series that started last night at Kauffman Stadium. The big win by the Royals, hopefully that is an indication of even better things to come in this series. Al Pawlowski, who is basically the Joel Goldberg of Cleveland. And people are like, oh, okay, I get it. Right on. And so Al came on with us the last time the Royals played the Guardians in Cleveland, so we'll get his thoughts on the game last night and preview the rest of the series and how Cleveland has become one of the very best teams in baseball despite that loss last night. They came in with a commanding lead in the Central, and they came in to the series with the best winning percentage in the American League. We'll see if they leave that way. But no matter what you think of the Guardians, they're clearly better than anyone anticipated. And they still have the best winning percentage in the league right now. After the loss last night, still 51-28, so a heck of a baseball team. And that's why the win was so important. Look, I'll go back to that last game against the Marlins and where the Royals were at in the eighth inning with 2 outs and nobody on, down 1-0, and the offense asleep. They were this close to losing that game and losing that series. And they'd have to sit with that and think, wow, we lost a series to the Oakland A's. Now we come home and lose a series to the Marlins. We got first place Cleveland, the best team in the American League, coming to town. That would not have been a good feeling at all. But they get that rally in the eighth inning where Bobby Witt Jr. starts things off with a triple, and then they get hot, score 5 runs, close the game out, win the series. It was an afternoon game, so they have the rest of the night to feel good and to have some good vibes after a miserable road trip that saw them go 2-7 in the 9-game road trip. But they win the series, and again, against a bad baseball team, you're going to drop some games. But you just don't want to lose the series. You're not going to sweep every bad team you play. You know, if you can avoid getting swept like the Royals have all season long until they got swept by Texas over the weekend, and if you could beat the bad teams, and the Royals had usually done that until they played Oakland, you're gonna be in a good spot. And the Royals were in a good spot until that road trip. The Royals are still in a pretty good spot. But I just think psychologically and for momentum, winning that game against the Marlins and giving them the series win and to get this lengthy homestand, 10-game homestand started off on the right foot was huge. The offense still has its issues. The bullpen is still a work in progress, but that was a big win. Then you head to last night, and stop me if you have already heard this before. The Royals' bats were asleep. They were getting a good pitching performance, a really good pitching performance, considering who they're facing. I know that, Michael Wacha wasn't totally sharp, but I don't care. I don't care about the peripheral numbers and how many hits he gave up or anything else. If you're holding Cleveland to 1 run, you're doing a good job. You're doing the job that you've been asked to do. He went 5 1/3 innings, gave up 7 hits and 2 walks. That's, I want to tell you, it's too many base runners per inning. That's fine. He didn't go long enough, 5 1/3, but he kept the team in the game, and he gave the Royals a chance to win. But then you're thinking, oh, boy, here's another 1-0 game. When are the Royals' bats going to wake up? Oh, boy. Matt Quatraro just got thrown out of the game again. But, hey, that worked out last time. By the way, now the Royals are 2-0 when Matt Quatraro gets thrown out of the game. So keep getting thrown out of the game. No, maybe not. But still, it's state. If he's looking to fire someone up, I guess there it is. But it's 1-0. You're thinking, offense, don't waste this pitching performance. Don't do it. And I don't know what it is about the Royals. Maybe it's the athletes that they have, whatever it is. I mean, Bobby Wood Jr. leads the way, but you could argue the most exciting play in baseball, clearly one of the most exciting plays in baseball, is a triple. It's awesome. Growing up watching the Royals the way I did in that era, George Brett, he had a boatload of triples. Willie Wilson. I remember being at the ballpark when Willie Wilson would hit one in the gap, and then just everybody would get up because you knew he wasn't going to stop at second. He'd round second, slide into third, everyone would get fired up and go crazy. Triples are awesome. You don't see that many triples in baseball, but this Royals team, Bobby Wood Jr. leads the way. You see triples, and so in that sixth inning, or in the bottom of the sixth, I thought it was cool. It was awesome that it was 2 other guys. Kyle Isbell leads off with a triple, and then Maikel Garcia drives him in with a triple. And you're thinking, here comes Mr. Triple himself, Bobby Wood Jr. He bowed out to first, but still, the game had been tied. You feel like at least take a deep breath and go, okay, they're not getting shut out. They tied the game. But then here comes an important at-bat because you've got a runner at third with less than 2 outs. You got to get that runner home. Bobby Wood Jr., one of the few times he failed at the plate this year. But Vinny Pasquantino, I mentioned, very slowly but surely, I have had gigantic expectations for Vinny. I've thought that he's going to be a very good, above average, middle of the order bat. I like the fact that he'll take a walk, so he should be, at least he's shown in his minor league career, and most people that watch him believe that he'll be a relatively high on-base percentage guy in the majors, but he's a run producer. And that's what he's got. He's got to drive in runs, especially with the guys in front of him. And slowly but surely, hopefully, he's climbing out of this disappointing start to the season that he's had. But he had a ribby in each one of the 3 games against the Marlins. And look, that's not, maybe that's something to write home about, but the few runs that this team scores and has been scoring, if you're driving a run in every game, if you've got any kind of streak like that, you're doing your job, right, as a run producer. And so he comes up, hits the sacrifice fly. It ain't sexy, but it got the job done, got the run home. And so that's 4 straight games with a ribby for Vinny Pasquantino. And so arrow pointing up, that's good. And the Royals tried to score another run, couldn't get it done. And when that ball off the bat of Lofton, I thought that was going to be something and get another run at least. Didn't do it. So then you look, okay, the offense, that's one of the things that the Royals have been struggling with offensively, trying to score runs. They did their job there. Now let's take a look at the other part of this team that has struggled, the bullpen. Can you get the job done? Can you get the job done against Cleveland? And I'll be damned if the bullpen didn't get the job done against Cleveland. And that's been one of the big reasons why Cleveland's been so good is because their bullpen has been excellent. When they get a lead, they don't give it up. And so between Long, Schreiber, who went through a terrible stretch there for a little while, and MacArthur, they were able to put together 3 2/3 innings of not only scoreless relief, but hitless relief. The only base runner was a walk given up by Long. But 3 2/3, no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Their walk rate has been too high, and their strikeout rate has been one of the worst in baseball when it comes to the bullpens. And so 2 things that went against what they've been, 2 negative things that have been going on with the bullpen. They're walking too many guys, and they're not striking out enough guys, right? And so they limited the walks to 1. They got 5 strikeouts. So they limited the base runners, no hits, and they got through it. And that was and that win was going to be big anyway. Didn't matter how it happened. 10-1, 5-4, 4-2, whatever. You win the first game against Cleveland. You combine that with what you did against the Marlins, and all of a sudden, you start the homestand winning 3 out of 4. Then you're erasing the memory of that 2-7 road trip. And you came into this, and look, expectations are up to the individual, right? But what we talked about with this 4-game series, obviously don't get swept. Don't lose a series. At the minimum, get a split. Okay, you split 2 games up there in Cleveland because one of the games was postponed, and you come here, and if you split 4 games at Cleveland, then you're 3-3 on the season, and you say, okay, hey, we've gone toe-to-toe with the best team in this league, and we're all right. And that says something, and again, I think that says something psychologically to the team. That also shows something to J.J. Picollo as he's trying to decide right now how aggressive he needs to be and how aggressive he wants to be before the trade deadline. Like if they keep losing and they fall further out of the division race and fall further out of the wild card race, we may not be as aggressive in going out and trying to acquire relief help and outfield help. But if they put together a real nice homestand and they start to pick up some ground in the division and they get back in a wild card spot, well, then maybe he's going to be more aggressive, and that's what we want. They need bullpen help still. Even after last night, you need bullpen help. You got to have another bat in the lineup to get more consistent production out of your offense. And so, minimum, you're asking them to split the series. Now you win that first game, you're halfway home, baby. Now you can think about, well, maybe we win 3 out of 4 here. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's just a good feeling to win that first game. And now you've put yourself in a favorable situation going into the weekend where there should be some really good crowds. It's Hall of Fame weekend. They're going to be honoring former GM Cedric Tallis and John Schuerholz tonight. And then the big day tomorrow when, everyone loves Bo Jackson, so there should be a great crowd as they induct Bo Jackson into the Royals Hall of Fame. Now you're talking. I know Alec Marsh is going tonight, but then guess who? Cole Reagans and Seth Lugo. Now, winning that first game, put yourself in a great position to at least get the split and maybe even mess around and win this series. And what a boost that would be for the Royals after that miserable road trip. So big win last night, 2-1 over Cleveland. The offense came through when they needed to. Still not enough, but it was enough last night. Waka did his job, and the bullpen was terrific. Let me see more of that from Long, by the way. An inning and 2/3, no hits, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. His stuff was nasty last night. Swing and miss stuff last night from Long. That was terrific. And I don't care who it is. You need relievers to step up and gain the confidence of Matt Quatraro and gain the confidence of the fans. The other day I asked the guys when we were in here talking about this, What reliever do you feel most confident in? Who's the guy that, if there's a tough situation, a high leverage situation, outside of MacArthur is the obvious guy right now that they're going to use in a safe situation, but in the 6th or 7th inning, who do you feel confident in? Who do you feel most confident in? It's like, and that all came up when we were talking about taking Lugo out after 87 pitches, and Matt Quatraro said, well, it was partially because of the heat, partially because of how hard he worked in that last inning, and also the way we felt about Carlos Hernandez in that situation. I'm like, how do you feel about Carlos Hernandez in that situation? Because I don't feel great. I'd rather have a tired Lugo out there. But I digress. Who do you have confidence in? And if Long's going to pitch like that, that confidence level will raise real quick from Quatraro and the fans. Let's listen to Sam Long. Not that often you see Sam Long as the guy that's being interviewed on the field after a game. But if you go out there and do what he did, then you're going to get some attention. Here's Sam Long talking about getting the win against Cleveland and going out there and having a really good performance out of the bullpen.
It's always fun when we get to bring a reliever back out here, and that's what we've done with Sam Long, who gets the win and was absolutely spectacular on the mound. I just want to know what it's like pitching in a game that had certainly a playoff feel to it.
Yeah, the crowd was unreal. You felt the energy from the start, and to come into a situation with guys on base and to be able to get out of it and then go out and get another 3 outs, it's huge.
I know that all of you take it one batter at a time, one pitcher at a time. How even more important is that when you're facing a lineup with so many dangerous hitters?
You just stay focused on what the plan is, keep attacking, and just keep trying to pound the zone and fill it up with your best stuff, and just attack as best you can.
You have 2 guys in that lineup. Doesn't matter left or right. A lefty in Kwan, a switch hitter in Ramirez that just don't strike out very much. What's the plan as you face each of them?
1 is to get ahead, and 2 is to...
I think you saw it coming just a little bit. That's the first. Pitchers don't get those splashes too much. Anyway, back to those strikeouts, because those guys can go weeks without striking out.
Yeah. I mean, especially in that spot, a close game, that feels great. I want to be able to do that in any situation. No matter who's in the box, I'm attacking them, and I'm trying to put them away.
Last thing, I'm curious your perspective. You've been here long enough, and this team has been down a bit. Big win yesterday, huge win tonight. What you've noticed from this group when they're facing adversity?
We all know what we're capable of, and we trust in each other. Everyone has each other's backs, and to keep it rolling, and no matter going good or bad, to keep pounding. And it's a long year, so we're gonna have ups and downs, but we're gonna keep attacking and competing our butt off.
Waka, Long, Schreiber, MacArthur, great job by the bullpen. Great win for you and the team tonight. Nice job.
Thank you.
You think he was elbowing him in the ribs like, you've been here long enough, huh? Huh? That's what he said, Sam Long. Maybe like a little wink, right? Long pitched with the Giants and the A's, and so he has major league experience before he came to Kansas City. It doesn't matter where you get bullpen arms. I mean, we've seen the Royals take guys off the street, trade for them, pick up guys with DFA. It doesn't matter. If you can get your hands on a guy with that kind of stuff, the Royals have had a knack over the years of turning those guys into productive relievers, and hopefully that's what's happening with lefty Sam Long, who was terrific last night. Also, I want to mention, before we take our first break of the show, I'm going to be out and about today from 11 until 1 at From the Earth Dispensary, their newest location. They're having a grand opening this weekend, located right off 103rd and State Line. Right off 103rd and State Line at From the Earth Dispensary today from 11 until 1. It's a grand opening celebration. They're going to have a whole bunch of fun and specials and giveaways all weekend long. Some great deals. Some buy one, get one 50% off deals. I'm going to be out there, and we are going to have some awesome giveaways as well. We're going to have some vouchers good for a ticket to a Monarchs home game. We're going to have some B&B movie passes. We're going to have just a few New Day with SSJ t-shirts, just like the one that the Drake, Jason Justice, is wearing today. Unbelievable. I don't know if he planned this. I don't know if that's his Friday shirt or he knew he was going to come in here and run the show today. But whatever reason, it's appreciated. And that's what you call cross-promotion right there, people. I would say maybe we'll have 3 or 4 or 5 of them. So if you're there right off the bat at 11 a.m., you might get one. But if you don't, you'll get a Monarchs ticket or you'll get a voucher to go see a movie at B&B Theaters. You're going to get something, I can promise you that. And at the very least, a firm handshake and maybe a hug, depending on how you roll. So come out and see me. Get it how you roll from the earth. It's all, it's everything. It's all firing on all cylinders right now. Come out and see me from the earth today from 11 until 1 at their brand new location. It's the grand opening weekend at From the Earth Dispensary at 103rd and State Line. We'll be right back after this on New Day with SSJ. Welcome back to New Day with SSJ on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Stephen St. John, Stan Weber, and Stan, I'll let you introduce the special guest you brought in studio with you.
Well, my son Stanton Weber, who loves the Royals and obviously from Kansas City, is spending all of his time in Toledo as a special teams coordinator in the football world with the Toledo Rockets in the MAC Conference, and he rolled into town last night, and we're ready to go to the Royals tonight. So big family night at the Royals. Stanton got up early, and he's here with us today.
Was it of your own free will, or were you forced to come in here, Stanton?
I'm not forced. It's not every day you get to spend time with Dad, so
There you go.
maximizing.
When you come home, does your dad say, "Holy Toledo"? Or nothing like that. You don't hear
But
that
he's the one
very
that should
often.
say that
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, that's
To remind him, because when he comes back home, you just think of him, hey, he's back home, right?
Right, that's right. And you guys are going out to the Royals game tonight.
Oh, big deal, yes. I was out another day game on Wednesday. Reminded me of you, Stephen, when I sat down the right field line in the shade this time.
Right.
It was also only 85 degrees, by the way.
There's no shade
It
for
felt
us
like
over
it
there.
was like 65 compared to the game before, the Thursday before, but it's two end-of-series afternoon Royals games with comebacks. First the Yankees in the win there when we were with you, and then the next Wednesday I was out there watching the baseball game, and the Royals came back, and I guess triples are pretty valuable in baseball. We found out the last two games.
They're so exciting to watch, and like I said, it's old school. It reminds me of the Royals of the 70s and the 80s. But man, I can imagine there were some grumblings and mumblings during that game against the Marlins when it was 1-0, and it felt like they were going to lose that series until that eighth inning when they scored 5 runs, right?
Yeah, when they're going against a bad team with a pitcher making his major league debut on the road.
With a 5 ERA in the minors.
Yeah, in the minors.
Right. So it's
And
not
the
like,
Royals have a big 0. And when Bobby Witt hit that triple, there were 2 outs.
Yep.
There was nothing going on in the 8th. And then he spun around on a triple, and he's standing on third. Now, triples like last night with no outs, you figure we're going to get that run in, right? I mean, the probabilities are way in your advantage. But the story of the game before against the Marlins was if the Royals did get a hit, they only got about 4 through 2/3 of the game. They were always with 2 outs. So even if it was a double or something that would make it seem like they could score, it was always too late, 2 outs. So when Bobby Witt slid into third, I go, great, except for he's going to be stranded at third, and we're going to go to the 9th inning. And then all of a sudden, how about Salvador Perez ripping the ball down the line? How about the Royals scoring 5 runs and making it look easy? It's amazing how baseball, you snap the fingers, and you're going from a complete slump, can't score. Remember they had a, 25-inning stretch on the road where they didn't score a run?
Right.
Here they are, 2 outs, Bobby's at third. You're going, oh, boy, what's going to happen? And all of a sudden the Royals are cranking the ball, winning easily. But last night's win over Cleveland, very good. 2 triples in a row. I have not heard the stats yet. How often has there been 2 triples back-to-back in Major League Baseball? That doesn't happen very often.
No, it can't. But the Royals and Bobby Witt Jr. is the leader when it comes to triples. He's the guy that has brought the triple back to the Royals organization, and so it's one of the most exciting plays in baseball, especially when it ties the game in the 6th inning. And something cool for you guys too tonight. Cedric Tallis and John Schuerholz are going to be inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame.
Yeah, you say the name Cedric Tallis, and I am an old guy, and I even go, that name rings a bell, but I don't know all the history of Cedric Tallis. I kind of remember some things about him being important when you think about Ewing Kauffman starting the Royals. The A's left town. We spoke about that last week, didn't we? With Reggie Jackson, and he was a part of the Kansas City A's. They left, and Major League Baseball allowed the Royals to be created here in Kansas City soon after. But I was so young that I don't know all the history for him. But John Schuerholz, I got to know him. Dayton Moore basically came from that same tree, and the Royals won the World Series in 2015. So you got one name that is like historic, and the other one, for younger people, they're going like, who's John Schuerholz? Well, I know who he is. But did you know much about Cedric Tallis?
So I have one friend that's somewhat of a baseball historian that would always talk about Cedric Tallis, and I remember my grandfather talked about Cedric Tallis a lot, and so, just loving the Royals and doing my research, I was aware of who he was and what he did. but there was an article before he was inducted into the Royals Hall of Fame, or before it was announced he was going to be inducted, that came out in January, and it was by Bradford Lee at Royals Review, and it was about how Cedric Tallis belongs in the Royals Hall of Fame. You know, if Joe Burke was in there, why isn't Cedric Tallis? And so he wrote about some of the things that he accomplished. He was became the Royals GM in 1968, but he was responsible for acquiring 11 of the players that are in the Royals Hall of Fame. That's 61% of the Royals that are in the Royals Hall of Fame. And so you'll appreciate this. He made numerous one-sided trades that brought in Cookie Rojas, Amos Otis, John Mayberry, Freddie Patek, Lou Piniella, Ed Kirkpatrick, and Hal McRae. He drafted or signed Paul Splittorff, Doug Bird, George Brett, Dennis Leonard, U.L. Washington, John Wathan, Frank White, Al Cowens, Willie Wilson, Steve Busby, Mark Littell.
Wow.
So
those are some great names.
I mean, like,
Stanton, do hardly any of those names. How many of those 2 or 3 or 5 that you've ever heard of before?
Oh, more than half.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Stan's like, come on, give me some credit. But I mean, that collection of that fantastic collection of talent. I mean, that's a lot of those players are the players that I grew up with when I first fell in love with baseball.
Cookie Rojas, second base before Frank White.
And he turned the Royals, or helped build them, into a model franchise. And he only had the job for 5.5 years.
Wow.
And so, I mean, look, Cedric Tallis in, John Sherholtz in, so it's a great celebration of some fantastic Royals teams. And, of course, John Sherholtz, like you said, you know, some more fans know him. But how about this? John Sherholtz started as an administrative assistant, and he served under Cedric Tallis and Royals Hall of Famer Joe Burke, and then rose through the ranks over the first decade with the team, and ends up being named the 3rd general manager in Royals history in 1981. Takes them to become they were already a championship level roster, but gets them over the hump. He signed Bo Jackson, who's being inducted tomorrow. He drafted Kevin Appier. He acquired Jeff Montgomery. He put all the finishing touches also on that 85 team. So it really is, even though Bo Jackson, and rightly so, because there's never been a better athlete to play for the Royals, even Bo Jackson's getting all the headlines tomorrow. Tonight's like a really cool celebration of Royals history.
From the start.
Right.
And they built themselves so quickly in the early 70s. We spoke about it last week. The Oakland A's were so good winning World Series championships, and there were no wild cards, and the Royals were in the same division. So even though the Royals are playing great baseball, they're not making the playoffs in the early to mid-70s. It took a while to bust through. They were knocking on the door. Man, they were good already. Think about that. Starting in the late 60s with your new team, and already by the early 70s, this team's exciting and very good and on its way to, 1977, the most wins ever in Royals history.
Yeah. And let's see. I used to always say the most heartbreaking ending to a season, but losing in the World Series in 1980, I remember my grandfather crying. But then fast forwarding to 2014 when I was with my boys, and and just because in 2014, well, you know what, it was like that in 1980. I don't know that I remember, like, the people around me, I don't know how many people actually believed they were going to beat the Phillies. I remember, it's so crazy, going to Mass on a Sunday, and I remember the Father Hicks was a huge baseball fan, and my mom said, after Mass, ask Father who he thinks if the Royals will win the World Series. The Royals had already advanced. And I went and asked Father, and I think it was the Astros and the Phillies in the playoffs, and that still was going on. And he said, son, if it's the Astros, the Royals will win. If it's the Phillies,
welcome to Steve Carlton's world.
They won't. And I said, okay, well, here it is. And then I was like, well, how old would I have been? 7. And then the Phillies won, and I cried before the World Series because I was an idiot. But up until the final moments of that 77 ALCS, you thought the Royals were going to win, right? And I compare it to 2014 because up until Salvi popped up, when he was up and Gordon was on third, I was sure Gordon was going to score. I was sure they were going to rally and win that game until they didn't. And that was, so I guess maybe, 77, I was too young. I remember people being upset and the stories that have been told and going back and watching and not believing how the game and that series ended and Freddie Patek crying. But 2014, the only two comparisons, or the comparison I make between those two, you thought the Royals going to win to the final moment, and they didn't.
The biggest difference, I think, is you don't ever want to miss out on that opportunity to win the championship when given the opportunity. But the fact is, there's no way you could take the smile off your face in 2014. From mid-season, wondering, are they going to change the general manager? What about the manager? What about this Royals team? Another bad season, to the wild card game, and then 2 series where they sweep. Losing to the Giants was not great, but it wasn't nearly as sad to me as you go back in 1977 when you're the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
And in baseball, it's a hard game because just because you're the best team in the regular season, these series are very short.
And how the Royals had lost
and
in
76.
like
5-game series.
Yeah.
And 76, the
losing
punch in the
yeah.
gut to Yankees. And
You remember 2015? We were dead to rights against Houston. Game
that
4.
was amazing.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about 14 all the time because it was a home game and the wild card. But 2015, the odds of the Royals, a shortstop making an error on a 2-bouncer to him.
And you remember
to keep the game alive.
how many people thought Toronto was going to beat the Royals, and people forget that in the championship game. That was still of that run. The wild card game is number one. That was the best game.
2014
But
wild
my
card.
favorite game that I went to in those 2 seasons was Game 6 of the ALCS against the Blue Jays, because the intensity was so great. And you remember you had that delay, and you're thinking, oh, Wade Davis is going to be able to pitch after the delay, and it was just.
Well, 15's like 77. You're the best team. You got to win. You're the best team in Major League Baseball throughout the whole year.
And this is why it's just so stinking fun that even though they're 8 games out, they're a part of this thing, and they're a part of the wild card hunt. And we've just been starving since 2014 and 2015 for games that matter in June and July. And like last year at this time, we're done. We're not talking about the Royals right now. Stan, I'm talking, hey, what do you think? 2.5 weeks before training camp, what's going through the minds of these players? But now it's like, hey, there's a reason to go out there. This is exciting. This game feels like it's something. You heard Joel Goldberg talking to the reliever Long last night after the game. He said, in what feels like a playoff atmosphere. There was no game that felt like a playoff atmosphere last year. So this is like, you say don't take for granted opportunities to win a championship. Don't take for granted opportunities to go out to the ballpark in late June in a game that matters. Because we before 14 and 15, there was a long stretch, nothing mattered. And since then, there's been a stretch where games didn't matter. So it's very nice to have that back.
Oh, you talked me into it. Hey, Stanton, let's go to the game tonight.
Get out there.
Steven talked me into it. We ought to go to that game.
Get after it. We have Stan Weber. We have Stanton Weber. There's a lot of Webers in studio. Jake, you want a break? You're very unpredictable. Jake usually gives me a snarl, and I know it's time to break, and then I ignore him.
Drake never snarls.
I ignore Jake. I don't ignore Drake. He says to break, I break. That's a lot of break, Drake, Jake. All right, I'm rhyming today. Back after this on WHB. I asked Stanton if Gary Pinkel was still revered in Toledo. He said, of course, all-time winningest coach. But maybe not for long. Is that right?
It's getting close.
Jason Candle's 9 wins away.
Could you do it this season?
9 wins away. I bet Gary Pinkel goes. If it happens, he'll be there to pass the torch. And then we were talking, Stan, you'll like this. We were talking because Stan mentioned, when Gary Pinkel was at Mizzou, those are the glory days of the Big 12 when he was growing up. And we were just, I just told him, like, the great thing about my job is I get to talk about whatever I want in all these sports. But I love football, so I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out, okay, now, what are the teams coming in? So I got to learn about these. I really don't know too much. I know, and this you're at a different level for that struggle. Like, when you play a team, when you see a team every year, there's some familiarity with it. But now, like, these new teams coming in, like, okay, all right, now let's really dig into what is Colorado besides
remarkable
Deion Sanders and all this other stuff. And so that's got to be crazy for you too, because you have to know everything, and you pride yourself on knowing the opponent very well for whenever K-State plays. But you got all these new teams. Is it frustrating or is it exciting?
Oh, I would say it's exciting because of stability. College athletic stability is the big thing, right? It's the Pac-12 that finally broke. It all started around 2010, and arrows are pointing somewhere that some conference was in big trouble. In Missouri, Texas A&M moved, things like that. Nebraska, you're saying, well, is it the Big 12? It ended up being the Pac-12. Now the ACC is in an internal battle because they've got a contract. The most important thing to your revenue stream is your television contract, right, for football? And the ACC has a contract through 2035 that they don't like. So Florida State and Clemson saying, we got to get out of here. So they are disrupting things in their own conference right now. Obviously, the Big Ten's made a giant move in the SEC, so they have established a new level of income on their television rights. But the Big 12, with 16 teams, there's no reason why they shouldn't be an established conference going forward. But the new teams are outrageous. On July 9th, Stephen, right around the corner, because we're about ready to knock on July as a month, right? 9th and 10th, I go to Las Vegas to get introduced to all the football teams. A 2-day Big 12 media football days. So it's always fun to go to those, but this time it's really going to be unique because I'm going to be walking up to coaches. Usually I know them fairly well, the head coaches. Now I'm going to be walking up going, they have no idea who I am. I have no idea who their good players are, really, and there's such turnover. So, and just on your statement, the Big 12 just announced yesterday their basketball conference schedule. They're going to go to 20 games with 16 teams. So you play 5 teams twice and the other 10 once, which means half of those teams I don't go on the road to see them play. It's hard for me to get my arms around that because I'm so used to the old Big 12 with 10 teams. We go everywhere. So the schedules are crazy. In football, who we play, where we play them.
This is the first I've actually seen. This is the Big 12 website. It's updated. Look at the standings for Big 12 football.
That's like
good God.
It's small print and a whole page.
Right, but just like some of the teams in there.
Oh, it's
Arizona, Arizona State,
Utah.
Right.
Oh, BYU's established in the Big 12. This is their second year.
Colorado's back. I mean,
they're back. It's going to be what's hard, Stephen. Because on Saturdays, Danny and I have been doing college football game day for 25 years, and we look at the national picture, obviously, which means you're digging into a lot of great SEC teams. Once in a while, Ohio State and Michigan, maybe a team out like USC out on the West Coast or a Washington or Oregon, but we just dabble in that. When we start watching the games, there's a special interest when it's a conference game. Or remember when you have a division that you're monitoring? I'm sure you watched all the Georgia games the last 5 years, and you're saying what's going on with South Carolina and Kentucky and teams that are affecting your place in the standings. It is really weird as the Big 12 gets into conference play. There's going to be 8 conference games on a certain Saturday, and it's going to be hard to say, oh, that Utah-UCF game, I need to make sure I'm monitoring that. That's where I haven't got used to the new Big 12 yet.
And then the other new part of this, which is going to be exciting, but also it's just like I don't know what to expect, is you've got the college football playoffs. And so then it's almost like you're paying attention to everything nationwide. Like, okay,
Yes.
who's ahead of us, who's behind us for the teams that are lucky enough to be in the discussion. And that's the other cool thing, because you think if things go right, then the three local schools that we talk about all are going to be in a position where they have a chance to make the college football playoffs. And so we'll be talking about that. I don't know, maybe even more than we're talking about the conference race. Like, okay, where are they right now? If it ended today, because how many times are we going to do that all season long? If the season ended today, here are the college football playoff teams. And that's going to be wild. And then we're going to have days. I've already looked ahead. I'm ridiculous. I think the day that the Chiefs play the Texans on that Saturday, there's like 2 college football playoff games on that day during those games.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do I do? I hope I have that decision to make, but I don't know. It's going to be awesome.
You talk about a new day with SSJ. How about this? College football playoff finally is here with 12 teams. So when it was 4, you could have a great team, and it's almost like the Royals we spoke about earlier, having the Oakland A's ahead of you. Are you really going to be a part of those 4 teams? It's very unlikely for everybody in the country, right? Now you got 12. It's legitimately open, and around here, KU, K-State, Missouri are so excited about their teams that they all believe deep down we could be a part of the college football playoff this year. And we have sitting next to me right here in the station, Stanton, who's at Toledo. And guess what? With the new college football playoff, there are 5 conference champions who are guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. There are 4 power conferences, with the Pac-12 being gone. The 5th conference is that next level conference. The best team in that group is in the college football playoff. And Toledo, the last 2 seasons, has been the best or most consistent with Miami of Ohio in the MAC. Stanton has a chance to be a part of the college football playoff. We're sitting here with Mizzou and K-State and KU all thinking about it. The opening for that level of team as well, it's going to be hey, every football season I'm fired up, right? But right now, this area and watching the college football playoff unfold with 12 teams, it's going to be amazing this year.
That's going to be wild. I can't wait. I mean, you talk about what's going on in football in this town right now. You got the Chiefs going for a 3-peat and with a legitimate chance. And all 3 schools have things up and running that are considered top 25 preseason teams that have a legitimate chance of making the college football playoffs. I mean, I'm sure there was a year, but like when was the last time you would think that all 4 teams that we talk about the most, like, were this good at the same time?
Well, if you had the 4, there's no chance.
Right. I mean,
because you got to go back to Mangino doing well at Kansas in a 07 or so. And K-State was...
Yeah, the Chiefs backed into the playoffs in
Snyder didn't coach the Wildcats. It was Ron Prince in 06, 7, and 8. So K-State wasn't knocking on national championship discussion or conference championship. Snyder came back in 9 and snapped the fingers that K-State was back. But KU was already starting to fade away from the Mangino time, so it's almost impossible to find it. Plus, Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs, trump everything out.
Right. No, it's amazing.
We're going to have some fun on Fridays.
Right.
Oh, boy. And then on Saturdays, cannot wait. This is legitimate excitement. This isn't, in baseball, in spring training, isn't everybody supposed to be overexcited?
Sure.
That's the great tradition. Like, this is going to be our year.
Everyone's in the best shape of their career.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great tradition about baseball, is the optimism of spring training, okay? But to see the optimism now, this is not like spring training optimism, because I've been around it my whole life, where I've heard so many years that when I get with a group of fans, usually KU, I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, usually KU fans or K-State fans, they have reason to be excited that season. Almost every time. Now, people don't think that way because KU had a long, bad run there, but the fact is, for most of my life, every year there was an excitement level like, this year we're going to do some things. That is going to be booming out of everyone's being this coming August, and it's going to be real, Stephen. Because you know what's important? Having an established good coach. You know what's really important? Having a really good quarterback. Every one of these schools goes, check, check. And then if you got in a conversation and said, Okay, let's act like we're general managers. Let's act like we're Cedric Tallis, okay? Or John Sherholtz. Would you trade and start thinking about, would I trade quarterbacks with you? Would I trade coaches with you? And each of those three fan bases, I believe, will be sitting there holding the cards tight to their chest going, nope, I want my coach and my quarterback. How cool is that?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone believes that their quarterback is the best of the three. Everyone believes their coach is the one they want, is the best of the three, right here locally only. And then if you go a little bit further, Stephen, because 50,000 watts, I'm not an expert on what all that means, but this station blasts out a long ways, okay? Iowa State fans in Des Moines can hear us. Nebraska fans in Omaha and Lincoln can hear us. And all the way down to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma State and OU fans. All of those teams also are very excited about what's coming up this year. With Iowa State coming to Manhattan and winning that game in the snow, they're fired up about what Matt Campbell's team is going to be like, a young quarterback. Nebraska believes they're going to bust through and be back toward Nebraska ways. Oklahoma had 10 wins. Todd reminds you, why are you disappointed in Oklahoma last year? Brent Venables won 10 games for the Oklahoma Sooners. And now they're new to the SEC. And Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy, you never turn your back on those guys because with the new Big 12, who's going to be established as the power in the next 10 years, Stephen? It's going to sort out where we're going to talk about one or two teams in the next 10 years that have a little bit of advantage over others. Who's it going to be? Right now, coming into the conference, Vegas odds say this year only, Utah and K-State are the two teams that are favored to win the conference. Utah's been very good. When they made their move to the Pac-12, they just busted right in the conference and went right to the championship. And so Coach Whittingham is going to be hard to stop. K-State's established, ready to roll. Oklahoma State's always been very, very strong. Can Baylor bounce back? You know, they've done some really nice things. TCU went to the national championship game just 2 seasons ago. The Big 12 is going to be very interesting. And always, Arizona played great football at the end of last year. You know who OU lost to in the bowl game? Arizona Wildcats. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait.
We have Stan Weber. We have Stanton Weber. We have the Drake, Jason Justice filling in for Jake. We have Yu the intern. And I encourage Yu, by the way, I said this is a good day for you because you have someone in here you can actually ask questions and he'll answer you. And so because sometimes the communication of Jake to the interns leaves a little to be desired, you know. Sometimes I feel like
keeps him off balance a little bit.
Intimidated to ask him. So I see you're having conversations, and she's asking you good questions, and
Absolutely, I'm explaining how the control board works.
I said if there's a technical question that you want answered, that's your guy. Anything about radio.
He's been here from the start, and he is continuing to roll through. Drake knows everything, how it works.
I need to go in there and watch this. We'll be right back after this on Sports Radio 810 WHB.